to hold the little pole here.
No worries.
Now, like I say, we've moved on quite a bit in terms of the technology that we're going to use today.
Yeah.
In the fact that I'm actually going to be able to record this analysis as we go through, which just wasn't available to us 6 years ago. And one of the things that we're also going to do is when we get into the water, I'll be setting up with a radio headset as well, so I'll actually be able to talk to you, Greg, as you're swimming along. So let's just have a little look at today's footage first and see how we're looking. Now, just tell me about what you've been doing in the last, let's say, the last sort of 3 to 6 months, basically, with respect to your swimming. How frequently you've been swimming? And
Probably 4 to 5 times a week.
per week, yeah.
Yeah, and I've been probably averaging around 23k a week.
It's pretty good going,
I'd say.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
And what type of things have you been doing?
I swim by myself on a Monday and Tuesday night at Riverton, and I just sort of have this relatively set routine that I do there. Just do I don't know, about 1500 of warm up stuff. Some free and breast, and then some drills with flippers, 616 and single arm, stuff like that. I also do a couple of 400 warm-ups.
Okay, yeah.
I think I do 400 pull and then just a 400.
Yeah.
Then
you got into any of the CSS stuff that we put out there, or?
Yeah, with the 400s, I try and make sure that I do that at a
reasonable tempo.
Yeah. And after those warm-ups and that, I normally go into some sets of hundreds. Maybe 10, 1500s, and
what sort of times are you holding
10
for
50s.
those?
Well, on a Monday night, I do what I call speed endurance.
Sure.
So I just do it a bit faster, not flat out, but I'm doing go on 2.5 and come in at about 1:32 or so.
All right, so nearly a minute's rest.
Minutes rest, okay, and then the 50s I go on 1:30, coming in at about 42s, 43. So and then on a Tuesday night, I do more endurance stuff where I go on 2 minutes and come in at about 1:38, I think. Of that order, and the hundreds go on a minute, coming in at 48s maybe. And then I usually finish off with doing a 2k block of 500s where I do 400 swim and then just 100 back and breast recovery, and then go again and do that about 2 to 2.5 k's of those. So 4 or 5 blocks of those, depending. Wednesdays I go to masters swimming.
Then I
do whatever they're doing, and then I normally really just do the same thing, blocks of 500s with a 400 swim and 100 recovery. Again, 3 or 4 depending on how the time's going. Saturday mornings do masters swimming as well. This time I go beforehand and do 2.5k before the masters session.
Okay. Oh wow. You're
Sundays,
certainly getting quite a bit in then.
I'm getting distance in. So
And about in terms of have you had to go assessing your CSS pace, your critical swim speed, or?
Not the real as such test. I mean, the last 1500 I did was about 25 minutes.
Okay, so one.
Yeah, or maybe just under. I did my first ever red mist set of 400s a fortnight ago.
How do you find that?
Well, I did those. I mean, with
the
swimming, I normally find myself a bit fatigued, with this training and that. So doing a fresh 2500 would be 1500 would be different to doing one while I'm still training. But I worked off doing it on a CSS of 142.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
That's how I did the 10 400s.
Sure.
And, thought, this is a bit too easy at the start.
At the start, yeah. But by the end,
the last two, were. I made the times,
and
I think the last one had to be on 7 minutes, and I got a couple of seconds under.
Yeah,
The first few just took a little bit of getting used to the pace, getting the pacing right. But I sort of got the hang of that. Not too bad. Generally, I'd concentrate on my pacing a fair bit. Even the 400s I do in training, I try to make them even split.
Yes.
All the time. Sometimes might be a second or two slower, or.
Are you using a tempo trainer for your pacing at all?
No, I'm not.
No. Okay. Have you looked at using one of those at all, or?
Sorry.
Have you looked at using one of those?
I have looked into it, but I just haven't got round to doing it. No. So yeah, no, I've been looking at getting a metronome and using that just to make it a bit easier.
Yeah, sure.
Although the 400 in that red mist thing, to make it easier on myself, I just went off on 7:30.
Yeah, on a cycle, right? Okay, yeah.
So between 20 to 30 seconds rest, depending which one.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously using the clock is still totally valid, and especially if you've got your benchmarks and your times, and it sounds like you pretty much know exactly where that threshold is, around about 140, 142 per 100 metres. The benefit of using the tempo trainer, of course, is that you can be really very precise with your pacing, and also be quite objective on a week-to-week basis, just moving it slightly forward each week. And I think you'd really benefit from doing that. Now, in terms of the breathing, obviously here on the 200 metres, we start off breathing 25 to the left, 25 to the right.
Yeah.
How do you feel that's working for you at the moment, and which side do you feel better
I normally swim, 50 left, 50 right when I swim, and I just
any bilateral in there at all, or
I hardly do any bilateral. No, sometimes.
What stops you doing
at the end of a swim, doing a warm down with a pool boy? What stops me doing it? I probably just haven't invested the time in trying it for an extended period of time. Every time I start it, I go, oh, this is getting a bit too. I just feel like I don't get enough oxygen, I guess.
Sure.
Which is probably maybe partly stroke rate, maybe partly
your stroke rate's all right.
Inefficiencies in the swim where I'm sort of using too much energy for the pace that I'm going, sort of thing, maybe.
We'll have a look at how well you're exhaling underneath the water first and foremost, and then see if that's a bit of an issue.
Yep.
And which side do you feel most comfortable with at the moment?
Breathing to my right was always my natural side. Sometimes I actually feel like I prefer breathing to my left.
Do you really? Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes it just feels better.
More balanced,
And I think maybe you've mentioned it before, I've seen it mentioned before, that sometimes you've got less bad habits on your non-preferred side.
That's exactly right, yeah, exactly right. Okay, cool. So let's have a little look at this, and obviously you've kindly brought down the video footage from 6 years ago, which we'll which we'll have a little look at in a moment's time. There's a couple of little things that we can go through from that.
Yep.
So here we go on this first lap then. Now, one of the things that I was admiring when I was walking over, I obviously just went for a quick loo stop before we started here, was your hand entry going into the water. I think this is looking very nice here. So fingertips are entering before the wrist and wrist before the elbow, and it looks like a very considered, smooth hand entry on both sides, in fact. When somebody breathes only to one side, so in this case you're breathing to your left, you can see that the rotation to the left is much better than what it is to the right, and vice versa. When you swap over that halfway, it becomes a little bit more pronounced on the other side. So things look quite nice from a recovery perspective over the top of the water. What we can't see too well here is just how well the body's sitting up in the water. So if we just take a quick jump forwards here to looking at the body position. Body position in the water is looking pretty good, but just from recall on those video clips from 6 years ago, body position for yourself was also fairly good at that point in time as well. Now there's still scope for getting the legs sitting up a little bit higher, which we'll look at how to try and work with that today. And just in terms of getting the general efficiency up, of course, if the legs do sit very comfortably towards the surface of the water, then the whole thing just becomes a lot easier, and things like bilateral breathing might be a little bit easier, etc. I think the actual kicking technique that we're going with here is actually looking pretty good. So we've got a classic sort of 2-beat kick going in. So right hand goes in as the left foot kicks down, and then the left hand goes in just as that right foot, just about as that right foot kicks down. Not quite so coordinated on the opposite side going to the right there. But if we take a bird's eye view looking down at the stroke, just here. So we've just switched over to breathing, or just about to switch over to breathing to the right in a second. But one of the things that has improved quite a bit from the previous video clips, just from my little sneaky peek there, is the fact that you're not crossing over anywhere near as much as what you used to do. So that's a good thing.
Still a bit of leg separation.
It's still a little bit of leg separation, and we'll look at why that's potentially happening. So looking at this hand here, and then the right hand coming in. The hand still wraps around a little bit around in front of the head there, but generally speaking, it's pretty good. The legs at that point, pretty nice and close together as well. But let's watch when the separation actually happens. So we've now shifted over to breathing to the right hand side, and at that point, something's happening here underneath the water.
They look very rotated over.
Very rotated, exactly right. And that's what I was just saying at the start there, was really when somebody breathes more to one side than the other, they end up developing a lot of rotation to that side. So all of a sudden we switched over to breathing to the right. The rotation starts to increase on that right-hand side, but unfortunately we end up losing a little bit of balance and the legs end up sort of scissor kicking apart a little bit. Notice it's not a problem on this side. It's only when we go to take a breath to that side there. So what we really need to do is we need to just take a step back and watch what happens on the left side here. Like, and similarly, I thought we've just got a little bit of water spot there. But the leg is just here. And the other leg just there, basically. Doesn't look quite so rotated on that side. But when we switch over to the right-hand side, of course, breathing to the right, do really come over. And again, look, just seeing it here. In fact, you can actually see your eyes there, pretty much looking up towards it.
Like I'm 90 degrees.
Exactly right, looking straight up towards the sky there. Okay, so the crossover has definitely got better, but probably just over-rotating a little bit when we're going to take a breath to the right-hand side. Now, let's look at it underneath the water. Now, one thing I just wanted to draw your attention to, I thought I mentioned obviously there that your hand entry looked very good into the water, especially on the left-hand side. This right hand, don't know how well we're going to see this, let's just see if we can zoom in a bit. This hand is looking very claw-like. As it's coming into the water. So one of the things I would like to see you doing on that right-hand side is, as best you can, try to actually keep the fingertips a little bit closer together and spearing into the water a little bit more. It just looks like it doesn't hold the water quite as well as the left hand. So left hand comes in, beautiful position here. Look at that, Greg. Really, really good.
I have sort of noticed myself, I don't know why, but just over the last month or so, my right hand, I keep thinking it looks so much like that when
you look at it. Yeah.
And I think, okay, I'll try and keep it flatter. And when I concentrate on it, and I feel like I'm going flat like that, it's still actually
tipping down a little bit. Yeah. This is really good on the left side. Really, very good indeed. And that's on a breathing stroke as well.
When I could,
on this right
when
side,
I was doing some stuff with flippers where you can look forward a bit better
and see what you're doing.
Between the left and the right was a bit like
quite
that.
pronounced.
So entry.
Absolutely. Just to help you with that, we've actually just created about a month ago. I created a new video here, which is quite an interesting one. We'll play this, and everything that we're talking about right now has all been recorded. You've probably seen some of them online that I've done. Let's just record this so you can see. It's about 2 minutes long. Just talking about the angle of the wrist and exactly what you want it as the hand goes into the water. Here we go. One of the interesting things about Mr. Smooth, when we released him, some coaches around the world are concerned that elite swimmers don't tip their fingertips down at the front end of the stroke to tilt the wrist to engage that catch. However, upon close inspection, we can see that almost all do. Let's now take a look at some video demonstrating this. Arguably one of my favourite swimmers here, Rebecca Adlington, doing precisely that. Olympic bronze medalist Cassie Patton, also. So it starts straight. David Davies, Olympic silver medalist and bronze medalist. In slow motion we can see that awesome high elbow catch and pull through. And then focusing on the initiation at the front, quite clearly tipping the fingertips down. Laura Manadou, Olympic champion and world record holder. Beautiful two-beat kick there. Engaging the catch to initiate the start of the front of the stroke. Michael Phelps here. Beautiful side-on shot here. And as we zoom in a little bit closer, even the entry going into the water is pre-set up to initiate the catch just by keeping the fingertips angled slightly down. Here's Shelley Taylor-Smith, 7 times world marathon swimming champion. Now this is a good visual.
Keeping her fingertips down, bending the elbow and pressing the water back behind her. Because she doesn't spend any time pressing the water down towards the bottom of the pool, she's not creating excessive lift at the front end of the stroke. Because of this, she doesn't then have to kick ultra hard to keep her body in that perfectly horizontal position.
Sun Yang here as well. World record holder for the 1500 freestyle. So as you're lengthening forward, just be careful to keep the fingertips angled slightly down. Not shortening up your stroke, but like with anything, it's still possible to overemphasize this.
It's maybe what you've been feeling a little bit on that right hand side.
Imagine you are directing water back behind you with the palm of the hand facing rearward. Now, it's been said that I'm a bit fastidious about technique. So what was quite interesting was when we did a little Google search on some of the coaches who recommended not to tip the fingertips down, we actually found their video demonstrations demonstrating this exact same thing. Rather ironic, don't you think?
The interesting thing there is, until you go under close inspection, it's easy to say that elite swimmers don't do that because it looks like it's more of a bend at the elbow than it is a tilting of the wrist. So it's just about getting it right. And on this left side, you're doing an awesome job there, Greg, because you've got that position absolutely spot on. Usually at this point within the stroke, someone would actually flatten out or even drift up towards the surface. Yeah. And you're doing a nice job of holding onto the water quite nice. On this right-hand side, the only major concern, though, is that claw.
Claw, yeah.
That's all it is, basically. So the actual positioning of the hand, maybe... no, I think compared to some of the swimmers that we've seen, that position would be fine. I just want you to close your fingers. Simple as that, yeah. That's exactly right, yeah. Yeah, almost...
For some, I also have a tendency to be like that on my right.
A little bit out on the side, yeah.
Tell me that all the time.
Yeah, close your finger in or what have you, yeah. I would think about it less as trying to... Some swimmers, even Rebecca Adlington, has a slight gap there between her little baby finger.
Yeah.
Just think about closing the fingertips up without it being like a rigid thing. Now, just going to the... looking at the catch then from that position, we can see here that the arm stroke is actually very, very straight when you're pulling through here. Yep. Very straight indeed. And if we just look at how this has changed over the last 6 years.
Very rotated as well.
Very rotated on that right side, exactly right, yeah. So the golden angle that we're looking for should be between 100 and 120 degrees. So if we just watch Rebecca down this lap, just watch in slow motion, you'll see that she doesn't over-rotate.
No, yeah.
So she's getting around about, we've actually measured it around about 52, 53 degrees worth of rotation along the long axis of the spine. Yep, okay. You can see there, look, the bend at the elbow is a lot more pronounced. Now, when she goes to take a breath, she still maintains that as well.
Yeah.
Most swimmers will do what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Where their hand actually ends up pushing down quite straight because you're using that arm like a lever to get your face out of the water. Now it's quite interesting because if we bring in some of the old video footage from yonks ago, let's just have a little look at this is our, sorry, let's go this one first in fact. The first one from June 2008. It's not quite so clear. Just take a look down this lap here. Okay, cool. So that right arm tended to pull out a bit on the straight side, but it was getting more of a bend look about midway through the stroke.
Yep.
This left hand breathing to your right hand side. Yep. And again, the bend at the elbow was not too bad at all. 117 degrees. Still happening a bit too late, but at least you were getting the elbow bending there.
Yep.
So that's maybe something we need to try and actually revisit within the stroke. Now, let's just bring this one in here because when you switch over, which I think happens around about halfway here. Yeah, here we go, watch. Yep. When we breathe to this side, we were starting to see, even though the elbow's bending, again you just sort of see that sort of almost falling and dropping in the water, dropping that shoulder down, and this hand itself ends up looking like it sweeps across a little bit underneath the body. Okay, so you look certainly a little bit more stable here, but arguably that arm itself is way too straight on both sides. So we do need to do a little bit of work on tuning that up today and just trying to get it working a little bit better for you.
Yep.
Is that something which were you aware that that's changed or shifted, or have you purposely
not
gone
really,
straight?
no.
No, just one of those things that's drifted in
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah.
You'd be quite surprised.
I mean, I was expecting a few things that you
but
don't
different,
know that you're doing.
Yeah,
but,
exactly right. Yeah.
As soon as you look at that video, both arms from front on just look very straight.
Very straight, exactly right. Yeah, after getting back from doing this Manhattan swim last year, I started to develop a little bit of a niggle in my left shoulder.
Yeah.
And I got one of the coaches down here to film me, and surprisingly enough, everyone thinks they're perfect, don't they? Underneath the water. But surprisingly enough, I looked at my stroke and I was about 160 degrees as well. I was like, oh my god, that can't be right.
Yeah.
And that for me was the source of my shoulder problem. I was pulling through too straight, placing too much pressure on the shoulder, and for yourself, it's maybe not flaring up the shoulders or anything, but it's going to be sacrificing a little bit that propulsive efficiency.
Yeah,
and when we're trying to answer that question, we obviously complimented you at the start about body position being pretty good, but I said that there's still scope for it coming up a little bit higher. One of the ways it would come up a little bit higher is if we're pulling through a little bit better underneath the water, because we wouldn't be pushing down quite so much. And if we just track this hand here, look, this is maybe that's probably just a little bit too pronounced. Just when we come through, what we're looking for, remember the overlay of Shelley Taylor Smith's stroke. We want the palm of the hand looking back behind you, pressing the water behind you, which it's doing at the moment. But then what it starts to do around about here, look, it starts to look back up, exactly right. And it spends quite a long time, almost half of the stroke doing this, which is wasted energy, because really what that's doing is actually shifting the hips down in the water a little bit. So if we just watch our golden girl Rebecca doing the same thing, you'll see that even though she clearly tips the fingertips down, just here, look, just track that hand through.
Yeah, it's already straightening.
Exactly right. It's actually straightening up. Exactly right. Yeah. Straightening in line with the forearm. Yeah. And then at the back end of the stroke, look, palm of the hand still pushing backwards, and then almost right at the very last opportunity, she folds the hand in towards the thigh, and then exits at the back. Quite clearly there. So on this side here, let's just see what you do with the left hand. Yeah, left hand's not doing it quite so pronounced, but on the right hand side there, it's definitely a scoop up towards the surface, and like I say, probably last 80 degrees or so worth of the catch. And that press at the back, it's very much lifting up. Do you get any soreness at all on the shoulder or on the triceps?
Not really, no.
I think maybe with the volume that you've been swimming and stuff, your shoulders are probably in a fairly sound.
It starts feeling a little bit funny at times, but it hasn't had any serious niggle for a fair while.
Nothing too bad,
I normally just start putting my hand a bit more like that.
Okay, and it just rectifies it, does it?
And go like that, and it just
externally
feels
rotated.
better,
Yeah, sure.
Because I thought sometimes I had a tendency sometimes in the right to go a bit like that.
A little bit thumb first,
yeah.
You don't, certainly not from the video. You don't seem to be doing that, but I think it's worthwhile spending a bit of time today.
When I had niggles, it was when I was mainly, and this is a few years ago now, when I was just swimming, breathing to the right all the time too.
Okay, yeah.
I think
was that on the left side?
Alternating left and right, up and down lengths is whatever pressure's going on one part of the shoulder or whatever's evened out a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sure. So I think it's definitely worthwhile spending a bit of time just making you aware of this, and then trying to tune that up at the back, because there's quite clearly a lifting action happening at the back end of the stroke. It's not mega rare to see this, but it's certainly one of the less common things that I see in somebody's stroke, and we can certainly do some work to tune that up. Now, the other thing that I wanted to just sort of run through with you here is, again, this is going to rely upon our technology improvements a little bit. I'm just going to watch this lap coming down, and this is playing at real time. I just wanted to see how the lead arm, as in if you're breathing to your left hand side, the left hand, and when you breathe into your right hand side, the right hand, there's a slight pause with this hand as it comes in. So just watch it in real time, see if you can actually determine the difference between the two sides. There's a slight timing difference between the two.
Yeah, I think when
Can
I
you
breathe
feel
to
it?
the left, it's more catch up.
Yes,
And on the right,
that's exactly right. Yeah. It doesn't actually get anywhere close to a catch up, but that sensation that you're getting there is what I'm trying to show you here, and it's quite a hard thing to actually sort of show. So just as best you can, just watch the difference in the timing between the two sides. So there's a slight stall right there at the front end of the stroke. And what it means is that if we just pause it here, need that a little bit better. Let's go. There we go. So it's our little stopwatch here. As that hand comes in, reaches maximum extension just there, so 43.670. And it starts to probably engage the water around about there. So you've got about 0.3 of a second. It's not a massive thing. A true overglider pause at the front is in the region of about a second to 1.2 seconds. So it's nothing in that sort of bracket. But what I want you to watch closely again is because we've got this slight timing difference between the two sides, I want you to notice how the right arm pulls through, and it's almost like the right arm stays at the same speed, whereas the left hand comes in, it stalls ever so slightly, and then because of that, it has to almost rush through the catch just a little bit. So see if you can pick that up. It's like a...
okay. At the very start.
At the very start, yeah. It's almost like it's suddenly having to...
more of an even time.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Stops.
And then quickly in, yeah. And it
Well,
probably means...
I sometimes do feel my left. Now, when it starts, it feels like it's almost sort of going a bit
and that's
like that.
That's precisely what it's doing. It's like, because it's stayed out there just ever so slightly too long. And we're only talking like 15/100ths of a second probably. Because it's just been out there just marginally too long, it then screws up the timing for the rest of the catch, so you have to rush through it, and that's why you feel that slight shimmer. And I'd be pleased to know it happens on the other side as well, just not so pronounced. So it's more of a difference between the left and the right hand side. You see this one coming in here, like that's that hand just turned out a little bit, the fingertips open a little bit like a claw, but the arm itself way too straight when it's pulling through there. And notice it, all of a sudden that timing issue that we had on the left hand side disappears as soon as you breathe to the right hand side there. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of work on that. You'll be pleased to know that one of the there is a drill that will really help to tune that up, and that drill is our Unco drill, which we're going to do today with a variety of different paddles on the lead hand. So the idea here, one arm held down by the side, right arm stroking. And what we're going to try and get happening is, whilst you're taking a breath to the side, the focus is to try and keep this arm in continual motion, but to try and get you to bend that elbow rather than using the arm like a lever to push yourself down. I'm going to take you through a couple of stages and try to develop this, and then we'll add in the paddles. It's a funny drill, is this one. It actually gets easier as you develop this exercise. So we'll start off with this standard or traditional single arm drill where we're going one arm out in front of you and then progressively build the arm down by the side. But by the time we get to using the paddles actually make the drill much easier because it allows you to gain that little bit of control at the front end of the stroke. As you can see here, just try and press the water back and try to get this elbow bending underneath the water. And you can see there that my left arm is nowhere near as good as what my right hand side is. I'm right-handed. Like most people sort of thing, got a good side over the other one. But it's worthwhile just sort of going through this today and try and get it tuned up for you. And it's going to involve us on the left-hand side, making sure that we're getting a good catch. And when we go into a full stroke freestyle, that the left hand doesn't actually just stall, just that very, very, very minor point in time. Okay, so it's going to be a good drill for us to build up on. Now, let's just go back to this video footage here then. So, let's have a little bit of a summary then. So generally speaking, pretty happy with the body position in the water. I would like to spend just a couple of minutes at the start of today's session, just seeing if we can try and get you. Even there, you can see how this hand pulls through very quickly, and that right hand is the one that's actually poking up towards the surface. Sorry, you were going to say?
In terms of cause and effect, the over rotation is that
It's just reliance upon breathing to
is
one
that
side,
sort of
basically. Yeah.
part of the cause as well in terms of the straight arm?
Absolutely.
Paul, you think or not?
I would say it's more of the part of the fact that when you're breathing only to one side, you can see there quite clearly that there's a difference on the rotation between the two sides, just like there's a difference in the timing as well. Do you know, you're going to hate me for saying this, but one of the easiest ways to correct it is
go bilateral.
Go bilateral, yeah. It's probably the easiest way of actually doing it.
Yep.
But rather than sort of say to you, you've got to go away from today's session and be able to breathe bilaterally straight away, and because you've tried it for quite a while and found like you struggle with it. In terms of the cause and effect, let's see if we can actually identify how we could make it feel a little bit better. Now, the classic thing is you're probably aware of is many people tend to hold on to the breath underneath the water. You're not doing that. You are exhaling underneath the water. So you could say, well, strike one, and it can't be that. But I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes with you at the start of today's session doing something which I do in most of these sessions these days, which is just a little bit of, I don't know if you've seen our sink down exercise.
Yep.
So we'll go down to the deep end of the pool and experiment with a combination of mouth or nose exhalation, or even a bit of both, basically, to see which works best. And then we'll try and transfer that across into the freestyle stroke.
Yep.
The thing is, we'll only be doing it for today when we get in the water, like 25, 50 metres. So you might find, I can do it for 25, 50. But the reality is, giving you, almost saying to yourself, go away for the next 2 or 3 weeks and see how well you can sustain it over a longer period.
Yep.
But a lot of those issues that we see, this asymmetry, will actually be improved by doing that.
Yep.
Here's one for you. Have you ever tried 3-2, 3-2, 3-2 breathing? So that would be 1, 2, 3, breathe, 1, 2.
I've fiddled, but I haven't put any concerted effort
that
into
might
it.
be, I mean, because you can clearly see, a lot of people say, I just can't breathe to the other side.
Yeah.
That's not you. You can breathe to either side. It's just you choose to do 25 or 50 metres on one side, 50 on the other.
Yeah.
The 3-2, 3-2, 3-2 breathing pattern might be like a nice halfway house, which sort of brings the best of both worlds in and feels like it gives you the satisfaction of having a little bit more oxygen in the system. That might be something to look at doing, and we'll look closely at how it affects the timing of a stroke. That's just the left one that just tends to pause there just a smidgen and then ends up whipping through quite quickly underneath the body there. See the just get you onto the. There we go. So you're breathing to your right here. Yeah, and we can see that the rotation there, look. You don't even need me to draw this on, but if that's the surface of the water there, and we go through the shoulders, pretty much 90 degrees. Yeah, very close to 90 degrees there. So, and you're asking about, is that caused by the arm being straight or vice versa, etc. I think the arm being straight, you're using the arm like a little bit of a lever to lift yourself out to take a breath into the side. Okay, but it's also just being aware of that's what you're doing with that arm. We'll do some work on some doggy paddle exercises today, just try and get those elbows bending.
When I've done some of the one arm
exercises
with flippers, I find, particularly on my left, I can actually feel like I'm doing that? Something like that.
Sure.
I find it a little bit harder on my right, but...
Are you right-handed?
Yeah, no, I'm right-handed. But I find, it's just, I guess I'm finding it hard from going from the drill to actually doing it.
Put it into the stroke,
in real life. And I guess part of the difference with the one arm thing is I'm not doing the same big rotation as well.
That's quite possible, especially if you're doing this traditional single arm drill where you've got the lead arm extended out in front, almost acts like a ballast.
With the one by my side is normally how I do it.
You might find having the traditional single arm drill with the lead arm extended out in front will act like a ballast out in front of you.
Yeah.
So it'll actually prevent some of that over rotation. So you might find that will work quite well. But the interesting thing with that is that you say that you can do it better with your left arm than you can with your right, and yet you'd think that it'd be the other way around because you'd expect yourself to be more coordinated with the dominant arm.
It's dumb because I can feel like I can go like this and not even actually be doing much work here until it's here, and then feel like I'm pushing back.
Sure.
I find that harder to get that same sensation on the right. Just during the drill, not swimming.
If you remember on the actual stroke itself, it's the right arm that actually does the sort of funny look up towards the surface, and maybe that's part of what you're picking up on. But the other thing to just consider is if you just stand up. So how you're pulling through at the moment, just leave that arm down on the side, this arm out in front of you, lock your elbow out, and apply pressure here. Push down with the straight arm. So that's how you're pushing through at the moment. It needs to be out here, so pull through now. becomes a little bit stronger because you start to use your chest and your lats.
Yep.
But if you were a fraction more rotated, so at the moment you're completely flat, but if you brought it to 45 and brought it in here, that's what we should be feeling in the water underneath here. Now, a lot of times when somebody's very dominant on one side over the other, even though you expect that right arm to be able to get the coordination correct, the right arm's probably searching for quite a distinct feeling of strength, of strong in the water. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why. In fact, the guy that I've just had down here just before you arrived, Cole, he was doing the same thing. Very, very straight arm. We did that same exercise just there. And I said, you're probably trying to aim for like a strong feeling on the water. But the reality is that when you get that elbow bending like Rebecca Adlington has, let's bring her up again.
I was sort of,
Just watch this again. Look. It's not a huge force going through each stroke.
No.
And a lot of people think, surely the catch is supposed to be harder.
Rebecca is, because of that bend, the actual hand itself is a bit more under the body.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Did you see? I don't know if you saw our blog a couple of weeks ago about swimming down a narrow corridor.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really what we're trying to sort of
the
visualise there.
Touch the
elbow
outside,
can touch the outside, but not the hand. Exactly right. Yeah. Now your hand is just outside of that. But sorry, go on.
Yeah. I was just about to say, being a overanalyzer, overglidery sort, I was probably worrying too about crossover.
Yes,
so
yeah.
having the hand out there and then it's all staying out there. Whereas I guess I can still enter like that, but no problem with it.
That's exactly right. Like I mean, your crossover has improved quite significantly since 6 years ago. You'd hope it improved a bit.
I was hoping there'd be some improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, this is certainly something which sort of take it to the next stage, because I mean, a lot of swimmers who I see, you can probably appreciate, they're held back more than anything by loads of drag, legs dragging down in the water. That's not you. It wasn't you 6 years ago. It's not
I
you
knew
now,
there was plenty of technique to get improvement, because I'm reasonably happy with the endurance. Side
I'm
of
sure if
things
you're doing
now.
23 k's a week,
and my times, well, I'm swimming faster, but only in terms of swimming longer, faster.
Yes,
if you know what
sure,
I mean.
yeah,
Not slowing down as much.
Yes.
Probably
Yeah.
But, so I'm happy with how that's building up. But there's obviously, with the times and that, there's still some significant technique problems that hopefully can get a bit of, not free speed, but just help.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Even if it's a bit more speed, but even at less effort overall.
Totally, yeah. And I think this is where we're
not
probably
wasted energy, I guess, is the
absolutely. And I think this is where we're going to find that with respect to actually getting this catch working a little bit better, and just really watching out on that right hand side about how we scoot back up towards the surface. That's going to be a tricky one. That's not easy to correct, isn't it, the back end of the stroke? The best way of doing it is just, as we saw with Rebecca swimming past the camera here, it's just literally to try and visualise always having the palm of the hand perpendicular to the bottom of the pool. Palm of the hand being shown back behind. And the fact is that because you swim so much, again, compared to a lot of people that I take for these sessions, you're very, very frequent in the water. Chances are, just by seeing that on that right hand side, you might be able to get back in now without me even saying anything, and you just to adjust that by sort of feel and sensory perception on it. Okay, so what we're going to do then, we're going to grab some fins, we're going to grab this little headset, I'm going to set this off to burn on the DVD. We're going to go down to the deep end of the pool. Just going to spend 2 minutes just doing that little bit of a sinking, see if we can work it any better. But then I think the solution there for the breathing might be to try this 3-2-3-2 thing. And then from there, we'll start to do a little bit of work on the single arm exercises, making sure that left arm isn't stalling and then having to whip through the catch, and making sure the right hand is not shooting up and pointing up towards the surface of the water. But the big thing, of course, is literally just getting the elbows bending. And the fact is, you know that you can do that, because you were doing it 6 years ago, and for whatever reason, it's just sort of like just drifted back to being a bit straight there. So, cool. All right, now let's just come out of here. Let's just stop this.